Hey dudes, I'm Hyla, and today on Hyla Cooking, I'm making some easy baby food recipes for you. All of these can be made without a blender or a chopper or any kind of fancy equipment or even simple equipment. You really just need a knife and some bowls and maybe a pot. The first one we're gonna make is baby oatmeal with dried fruit. You can use any dried fruit that you want. I like to use prunes and apricots because typically when babies start eating solid foods, it also comes with a little bit of constipation. Sorry to say that word, the C word, on a food show, but it's true. So some dried fruit has a lot of fiber, it's good for them, helps them get used to this thing. So because we're not gonna use a blender, I'm gonna need to dice these up, mince would be a better word, before we mix them with our oatmeal. So I've got like 6 apricots, probably 6 prunes here. Just get them as small as you can. And of course, if you have a blender, you can totally use a blender afterwards and just grind it all up together. Okay, so the prunes kind of get almost pulverized when you start chopping them. So that looks pretty good. We've got almost a little paste here of dried fruit. And then over here, I've got just a 1/4 cup of regular old rolled oats. So we're gonna add the fruit into the oats, and I've got it just in it's a little heat-proof glass measuring cup here. And then we want to add 1 cup of boiling water. Don't spill it on yourself. Tiny bit of salt. Babies don't need a lot of salt, of course, or a lot of sugar, but I also feel like baby food should taste like adult food to some extent, so it shouldn't be like the most bland, gross stuff. When you taste it, it should be something that you yourself would want to eat. And then I'm going to add a tablespoon of butter and just mix this all up together. And then we're just going to set this aside probably about 30 minutes until it's cooled off and the oatmeal will have absorbed all the liquid and the fruit will be really, really soft. And I'll show you what that looks like when we taste test it on Chef Baby. Next up, baby sweet potatoes. This is one of Flint's absolute favorites. So I've got 1 sweet potato here that I cut up into 8s and just covered it with water and boiled it for about 5 minutes until it's really soft and you can see the skins kind of start to come away from the flesh. So I want to get these out of here and let them cool just a little bit. Oh, that one just came right off of his skin, so I can go ahead and put it in my little bowl. And I love these little dishes, these little Pyrex dishes for storing baby food, and then I also will use like wide mouth jars, and because I just generally make enough for the week, so I don't really need to freeze it. But if you want to make larger batches, then you can freeze these, or if your baby isn't eating a whole lot of solid foods yet, then you might want to freeze like half of each of these batches. But this guy is 7.5 months old now, so he has been eating solid foods for like 6 weeks, and he loves it, and he eats everything, so that makes me happy. So we've got all our sweet potato in there, and if you had a food mill or you were using a blender, totally leave the peel on. This is just how I do it because it's simpler this way, not to have to clean a blender later on. I'm gonna add some coconut oil, about 2 tablespoons. He loves, loves, loves this combination. And I think it's important to, get a variety of fats in their diet. So I typically use coconut oil and butter. And if you can find like a grass-fed butter, then it's supposed to be a little healthier. And the babies are still on breast milk or formula in addition to solid food. Most of their protein needs is coming from the milk. One of my favorite little phrases I've heard about solid foods and babies is under 1 just for fun. So it's saying that under a year old, they're not really getting most of their nutrition from solid food, but it's a good time for them to explore and experiment and try out lots of different things. So again, I'm gonna add the tiniest little grind of salt and mix that in. Are you getting excited, buddy? You love sweet potatoes. And then I'll set this aside to cool a little bit. And this one and the oatmeal, pretty much all these, I'll try whenever I serve a couple tablespoons for a meal for him, I'll add different seasonings to each one so he can try lots of different flavors and spices and herbs. but I keep the main batch pretty unseasoned, aside from the coconut and the salt. All right, set that aside and we'll move on to the next one. Next up, we've got baby lentils with apples. So not everything is sweet. This one's a savory one. I'm using these split red lentils. They're gonna go in a little pot. And some homemade chicken broth. I'm using a homemade one because I want it to be low sodium. If you don't have a homemade one, then you could just use some water. But when I started experimenting with this, I really liked the apple with the chicken broth. It really reminded me of like Thanksgiving dressing or something. So that's kind of what this one is going for. So we got those two together in our little pot. And then I'm gonna coarsely grate one apple. So that's kind of a key thing with all these recipes is if you don't wanna mess with a blender to make baby food, then just grate everything up or chop it up really small before you cook it. And then it's small enough for the baby to eat. So you should have about a cup once the apple is grated. Any kind of apple you want. I'm using a Granny Smith, but surely it doesn't matter. Again, add just a tiny touch of salt. Stir it around. So once it's coming up to a simmer, we're gonna add our spices. Like I mentioned, Thanksgiving. So I'm gonna do a little bit of sage, and I think it's foolish to dumb it down too much for babies. I think it's a very American thing to do, is to assume that babies want everything to taste like nothing. So rosemary, sage. I'm not gonna do any black pepper. I do think, you know, maybe you don't want to do spicy things for a baby, but I know in a lot of cultures they do, so give it a shot, see what your baby likes. Flint has successfully eaten restaurant guacamole with jalapenos in it, and he didn't shed a tear. So now that it boiled, we're gonna turn it down to a simmer and let's let it simmer for about 10 minutes. Last one is baby guacamole. So I usually will just do like a quarter of an avocado at a time. Unlike, are you so excited? Unlike the rest of these, unlike the rest of these, this one cannot be made ahead of time. You need to kind of just make it when you're ready to serve it to him. But it's okay, it doesn't take long. So I'm just gonna mash this up. And I've done with like lime juice. He's really not big on sour flavors yet. So I just started leaving it out, and we'll try it again when he gets a little bit older. But he doesn't mind onion. So just one little green onion. Just gonna, again, just dice it up as tiny as your knife skills will let you. And then I find too that guacamole is a really good opportunity to experiment with different herbs to show them different flavors. So dill is one that I think is really nice to mix in there. Basil, tarragon, a little bit of oregano, cumin. It really takes a lot of different flavors very well. So go ahead and just try it out and see what your little one likes. Okay, Chef Baby, are you ready to do some quality control? Tell us which one's your favorite. Here's oatmeal with dried fruit. And try that again. How about sweet potato next? Sweet potato coconut. We love it. More? Yeah, do the happy food dance. Did you learn that from me? Okay, baby lentils. Up next. This one tastes like Thanksgiving. What's he doing to his head? Are you a sleepy baby? Hold still. Okay, last one, baby guacamole. More bite. And finally, I wanted to give y'all another suggestion. This is what I do a lot of times when we're trying to eat dinner and I don't want to like have to mess with feeding him while we're trying to eat. So I steam some broccoli florets like this, cool them off, and then it's like the perfect little thing that he can hang on to and chew on it, and it just keeps him happy for 30 minutes, and he just chews on the florets like that. It's pretty adorable. And also celery sticks. He'll do the same thing with celery sticks. It's gotta feel really cool on your gums, huh? Okay, well there you go. There are 4 super easy baby food recipes that don't require a blender, plus 1 bonus tip. All these recipes, along with some other suggestions for feeding babies, are written up at my website at highlycooking.com. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see y'all next time. Thanks for watching. Bye. Chef Baby, can you say goodbye? Chef Baby just loves to eat.